I will be introducing Mr. Azzam Alwash today because Faisal's mother passed away early this morning, and he sends his regrets. All we can say is Allah rahmet eylesin. It's my great pleasure, actually, to be introducing Azzam Alwash. He, as you may know, is the has been awarded the Goldman Environmental Prize, which is the Green Oscar. And he is also
I'm George Clooney.
included in Foreign Policy magazine's list of leading global thinkers in 2013. Born in Kut, Iraq, and I will not say when, Dr. Alwash spent most of his younger years in Nasiriyah, on the fringes of Iraq's southern Mesopotamian marshlands. In '78, he left Iraq, and after completing his BS in civil engineering at the California State University at Fullerton, and his PhD in geotechnical engineering at the University of Southern California, Dr. Alwash subsequently worked 20 years as a soil and environmental engineering consultant in Southern California. In 1997, he became active in Iraqi expatriate politics and joined the board of directors of the Iraq Foundation, an Iraqi NGO based in Washington, D.C. He returned to war-torn Iraq in 2003 to lead local communities in restoring the once-lush marshes that were turned to dust during Saddam Hussein's rule. He founded the nonprofit Nature Iraq in 2004 and used his professional engineering experience to develop a plan to bring the water back. As a result of his advocacy, the Mesopotamian marshes are starting to flourish again. The Iraqi government, in what is perhaps the most telling evidence of his success, voted to establish the marshes as the country's first national park in July 2013. And I now leave you with Dr. Alwash.
You guys probably are very familiar with the Middle East, so usually when I talk about Iraq, I basically tell the audience that the word Iraq probably means to you deserts, oil, destruction, Saddam Hussein and his weapon of mass destruction. The word Iraq, for me, brings pictures of snow-capped, majestic mountains in the north. These incredible valleys that bring the water of the snow that as it starts melting in the spring as we speak. There is the renewal of life that comes in every year, bringing water and soil to southern Iraq. Southern Iraq is a sedimentary plain. What does the term sedimentary mean? It means soil came from somewhere and got deposited somewhere else. If you look at this picture, it shows you the Tigris and Euphrates emanating from the mountains of Kurdistan. And every spring, the water comes in with the snow melt, bringing with it soil, then it deposits in southern Iraq. In a sense, southern Iraq is the gift of the mountains of Kurdistan. The soil of southern Iraq is the soil from the mountains of Kurdistan. The water of southern Iraq is the water from the mountains of Kurdistan. And if we are what we eat, then essentially we're all Kurds in Iraq. A line that the Kurds love, the Arabs hate. But truly, the point I'm trying to make is that the area is connected intrinsically. It existed before mankind came and created the first civilizations in the history of mankind. Southern Iraq is extremely flat. This is Baghdad, it's about elevation 65. Basra is elevation +2 meters. And the distance is about 600 kilometers. Oh, gosh, I need to convert that to miles. It's flat as a pancake. Right? Essentially, the water comes in the spring, and while it is a threat to the cities, it in fact was the reason why agriculture has lasted 7,000 years. And I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. But the result of the water of the Tagish is coming in and trying to get to the Gulf to Shatt al-Arab, it can't get to Shatt al-Arab because the flow capacity of Shatt al-Arab is limited. And thus, what we have in southern Iraq is a natural drainage basin that is an incredible water world in the middle of a dry desert. Most Iraqis have not seen the pictures of the marshes because as of if you were born, say in 1975, by 1980 you had war in southern Iraq, people did not go there. But I grew up around this water world. So southern Iraq to me is not a desert. Southern Iraq to me is an incredible water world. And in the middle of this water world lives these people called Al-Ma'dan. They are the inheritors of the Sumerian method of life. They are the holders of the world heritage of how civilization started. The life of these people is completely dependent on reeds. From reeds they make their islands. From reed they make the masts, they make the columns, the arches, from which they build their houses. From the reeds they feed their water buffalo. From the reeds they power their ovens. The reed is the skeleton upon which their life is built. And along the edges of the marshes is where agriculture or organized agriculture was first started. Or this is the ziggurat of ore, and I have very vivid memories of me as a young kid in the spring coming in and playing with the tar that was used to cement the bricks. This is a structure built in 2003, a modif, that shows you the connection between the past and the present. Let me briefly just tell you about the issue of agriculture. Given that Iraq is flat, this flood that comes in every spring, okay, so the grasslands around the perimeter of the marshes is where agriculture first started. And then because the area is flat, to try to create more and more lands that are arable, they dug canals to distribute the water. And so when the flood comes in the spring, it washes away the salt that accumulates from the year before from evaporation. Evaporation rates are quite high, about 3 meters. If you have a lake this deep, it will be evaporated in a year if you don't renew it. There's a lot of evaporation. And what happens is that as a result of agriculture, the water comes into, they use flood irrigations, and so the water kind of brings out the salt. And when the water is evaporated, you have salt on top of the soil. And it's, in fact, there's a term for it in Arabic called sabkha. Sabkha is salty. And essentially, what happens when the flood comes in, it washes away the salt and then deposits a new layer of silt and clay, renewing the vitality of farmlands. In other words, the Sumerian farmer did not need to use fertilizer. They had natural fertilization happening every year. And that's why the original Sumerians celebrated the fertility goddess in the spring, Ishtar. Okay, so let's leave that for now and pick it up later. This is a false color picture showing the marshes. This is the Tigris. This is the Euphrates. This is Quezza Marsh shared between Iraq and Iran. This is the Central Marshes, and Nasriya is about right here. And this is where I used to spend Fridays with my father in the spring, just about this time, because he was an avid duck hunter. He actually went out to the marshes in order to check out on the flood control structures. In reality, he was just using government facility to engage in his hobby. And I was lucky enough to join him because on Fridays, he and I were only in that boat, no other guests. When you see red, it is basically plant life. When you see black, there is no plants, it's basically water. So this picture was taken in 1973 at the time when the marshes were still in their natural form. The water comes in the spring, it increases the depth of water, it increases the lateral extent of the marshes. It comes in just in time as the reeds are coming out of winter hibernation. It comes in just in time as the reeds are, as the fish is spawning. In fact, the fish needs that depth of water because then the small little fishes can go into the roots of the reeds, escaping the big fish. It is the drumbeat of this. This flood is the animal drumbeat of the symphony of biodiversity that drives life in these marshes. And this picture is of the same area in 1997. The lakes became salt-encrusted deserts. The reeds became dry lands. And there's a new river. Well, what happened? Oh, by the way, and also you can see the Iraq-Iran border. What happened? Well, what happened was 1991. The marshes you see are our Sherwood forest. It's where the rebels escaped to escape the wrath of the Sheriff of Baghdad. You all know what happened in 1991. And when the rebellion was crushed, where did the rebels go? They went inside the marshes to escape Saddam Hussein. Now, think 1991, 1992. This is a time when Iraq was not able to sell a single drop of oil. Yet, the entire GDP of the nation, I exaggerate not, every single piece of equipment that was available in Iraq was used in the services of driving the water away from the marshes. I don't want to dwell on it too much because that's history. The point is, the drying of the marshes was so important for Saddam Hussein, not because, as they said in their official publication, that they wanted to develop agriculture in the marshes, but rather to deprive the opposition of a place to operate. Remember, this is 1980s. In the 1980s, the United States was helping the Nicaraguan rebels. Saddam Hussein understood very well that if, in fact, he did not drive the opposition out of the marshes, they will be used to undermine his rule. And therefore, it became very important for him to do the largest engineering project in the history of Iraq, which is the drying of the marshes. Now, the United Nations is not known for its revolutionary words. They termed, however, the drying of the marshes the worst engineered environmental disaster of the last century. These are fighting words in United Nations terminology, pointing the finger at the member nation, saying that this was the... Anyway, the result of the marshes, what looked like this in my childhood in 1975, and trust me, I went to the same spot because I know I had met the guy that took this picture, Nick Wheeler, and I went to the same spot. This is the picture that has been taken.
Oh my.
Picture speaks 1,000 words. I mean, I cannot tell you the. I mean, it's bringing back emotions right now.
Where is that?
This is Chibayish of Abu Nursi. This is Abu Nursi River. See how flat the land is? Do you see how flat it is? I mean, so this is a river. It's only 2 meters deep. But let me assure you, this is a river next door. It's about 2 kilometers away. This is one of the breaches that I did. This dirt is dirt that was transported from the desert because there was no dirt at the time when Saddam was trying to try these marshes. Every single piece of dirt, as I told you, every piece of equipment was used to this was transported 100 kilometers. That's about 60 miles. You know how expensive that is? It's very expensive. This is what we call $7 yards. Every yard costs $7 in cost to bring it here and compact it. Anyway, this was designed to hold the waters of the Euphrates away from the marshes. And what we did back in 2003, this was done on December 16, 2003. I paid $1,500 to bring in a big excavator and breach the Euphrates in 3 places without a government control. This was so great in 2003. In fact, it still is in Iraq. There's no government control. You do whatever the hell you want to do. We let water in, and within 6 months, I kid you not, 6 months, nature was able to heal herself. The water juice, you don't see it very well in this picture. Tamaracks and reeds are mixed. They're not, right now this area is completely reeds. The tamaracks, basically, tamaracks is a plant that lives on salt water. It cannot live in when there's water, it rots. Reeds, however, like water. And so 3 years later, this became a forest of reeds again. And of course, when the reed comes back, the marsh Arabs come back, the water buffalo comes back, and trade comes back. Reed may not be nothing to you, may be nothing to you, but reed is actually a way of life. People from reed harvesting and fishing can earn something like $30 a day. Do chunk change, it makes a family of 10 live quite comfortably. And I am very proud of this picture because it has 3 reflections. And I'm not telling you I'm a great guy. It was when I looked at it, I was like, anyway, this is a roadway that was built by Saddam Hussein to facilitate ingress and egress for the security forces. Ironically, it has become an ingress and egress for fishmongers. And it has provided a big market for the fishermen of the marshes. And as long as there are people who are making their livings from the marshes, I will always have advocates for the restoration of the marshes and keeping the marshes. Point for you. This past summer we had a huge drought. A lot of the marshes dried. A lot of this I don't want to say restored. I want to say reflooded marshes dried. And what we did was we loaded up buses of these people and we took them to Baghdad and demonstrated in front of the Ministry of Water Resources in an attempt to basically ameliorate them. The water was returned quickly, and essentially what was happening is that the rice farmers were taking more than their share of the water, and the marshes got reflooded. The beautiful thing about the reeds is that they are the carp of the plant kingdom. You can kill them quickly by depriving them of water, but the reeds, the seeds are so good that once you return the water, it's robust enough to come back. In 2003, before the restoration of the marshes even occurred, people were telling me, the seed banks is old, it's been 12 years since the marshes were dried, it cannot be done. That's what they said. Well, don't listen to experts. Just have trust in nature. This is not the first time the marshes dried, not the last time the marshes dried. In fact, I was told recently that we have evidence of marine life as far north as Najaf from 6,000 years ago. What means that salt water came to Najaf 6,000 years ago. Well, so the only constant in nature is change, and in fact, there's going to be all interplay. The point of this is that I want to tell you is that the marsh Arabs are the people who restored the marshes. Azzam only helped as a catalyst. This is a picture of the Basra reed warbler, who was deprived of his homeland. This was an indigenous bird. When the marshes were dried, we found them. They were reported as far north as Syria, as well as Israel. They came back in huge numbers. I don't want to tell you a little bit. I don't want to spend too much time on the biological. I'm sure you have birds. If you have birders here, I have a nice set of pictures to show you, because if you're a birder and you haven't come to the marshes, your life list is still going to be empty. There's 450 spaces that you need to come to the marshes to fill your life list. Ladies and gentlemen, when the eagle shows up, that means you have a very, very healthy ecology. And the eagles help back. And this picture speaks 1,000 words. This picture shows 43,000 mallards. The world known population at the time my team took this picture, I didn't take this picture. The world known population at the time was 25,000. This was at the time we were filming for the BBC, and it was an incredible moment. I don't think I'll ever be that happy. Now, it's a sort of success, moderate success, in a country that does not have that many stories. But is it going to last? I don't want to use the word restored. The fact is the marshes have not been restored. The marshes have been reflooded. The reason why I say reflooded, not restored, is because that drumbeat that I was talking to you about, that drove the natural biodiversity of the area, is dead. What we have is constant flow of water. We don't have floods anymore. And the reason is dams. This picture shows you existing dams, planned or proposed dams, or dams under construction, or regulators. The Tigris and Euphrates are no longer wild. The only river or tributary of the Tigris that has not been completely controlled is the upper Zab. And you can see even that will eventually be regulated by proposed dams. Now, dams are viewed as this, we're all worried about CO2, we're all worried about climate change, so dams are viewed as a source of sustainable energy, electricity, clean. It also is a way of regulating water so that we have enough water for agriculture, because eventually, what is water? What is food? Food is virtual water. Without water, you cannot grow food, you cannot eat, you cannot live. So, the dams are here to stay. But let me just show you what the effect of dams is. This is the Hindia barrage, the Euphrates. There's the flood that I was telling you about, the drumbeat. In 1975, we skipped a beat. And the reason for that is because Kiban Dam and Kiban Dam in Turkey and Tabaqa Dam in Syria were built at the same time, and the reservoir was filled at the same time. And of course, Saddam Hussein or the Ba'ath Party or Iraq was not on good terms with neither Turkey or Syria. And at that year, I remember actually, we were in Fallujah. My father and I, my father was the director of a project to direct water from the Tigris to the Euphrates. And I remember crossing the Euphrates that summer walking. Now, Euphrates, crossing it walking, I don't know. But I remember walking. Water did not come until to my knees. Agriculture collapsed in 1975, but then we had floods again, because the capacity of Kiban and the Syrian dam was not enough, but to hold all the water. So they released some water in the spring. So we had still some floods, but nothing compared to history. And then what happened here is the GAP project in Turkey began being built. The GAP project is a set of huge dams, and we'll come back. One of the dams, Ataturk Dam, in itself has a capacity of 98 billion cubic meters. That is the flow of the Euphrates 3 to 5 years. It's a huge dam. In fact, it's such a huge dam that once they began building it, the micro earthquakes began happening. The weight of that water on top of the plate was doing changes. Again, and this is the same story on the Tigris. Okay. The GAP project. Turkey says the GAP project is designed to improve the socioeconomic well-being of the mountain Turks, otherwise known to the rest of the world as the Kurds. But I was told by my father at one point in time, this is not the reason. There is a reason. I remember a project that the Turks were talking about back in the 60s and 70s about selling water. Go to research it. And I went and researched it. And this is a picture that I brought from Google. This is from a report from the 1972-73 CIA, basically talking about the peace pipelines, and it's talking about selling water from a river that goes into the Mediterranean at Adana. It's basically wasted water. Right? There's none of agriculture, and so Turkey was proposing to sell water from that place all the way to Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, all the way to Mecca, and branching out from there to Kuwait, all the way to Muscat. Now, that proposal never saw the light because it's very expensive to build pipelines. And more importantly, the reverse osmosis was invented as a process to clean water for the moonshot. But what has happened in the meantime, the price of reverse osmosis got dropped. By the 1980s, it became very economical to do reverse osmosis to provide drinking water. What Turkey did with the dams, with the GAF project, is basically generate electricity. Now, when you generate electricity, you're going to release water. Right? So you can hold it for the spring, eventually release it. The amount of water that goes into the country downstream is not going to be changed. But also what they have done in the process is to build small dams to create agricultural areas in the plains of Kurdistan. Now, that is legitimate. That's within their right. Nobody can deny them that right. Okay, what is happening, unfortunately, is that because water is cheap, the Turkish farmer, the Syrian farmer, the Kurdish farmer, in fact, even the Iraqi farmer in northern Iraq is using water, using flood irrigation. Because it's cheap. Right? You don't pay money for it. Use flood irrigation. The problem with flood irrigation is that over time it creates salinity. Now, the drainage water gets where? They bring it back into the river. As a result, if you're downstream, the quality of your water is getting worse and worse with time. And so the problem in Iraq and the farming in Iraq is not the quantity of water. It is really the quality of water. The Iraqi farmer is losing the productivity of his farm over time, slowly. And as a result, I stand here in front of you predicting the end of agriculture in the land where it was born, if we don't do anything. Status quo ante is not acceptable for Iraq. Let me repeat this. Agriculture is going to die in the land where it was born if we don't do anything. So, the current state of negotiations between Iraq and Turkey is similar to that between the Palestinians and Israelis. The Palestinians say this is our land, the Israelis say this is our land, God gave it to us. It's an unending discussion. The Turks say this is our snow, this is our water, we don't tell you what to do with your oil, don't tell us what to do with our water. Iraq says, dude, we have clay tablet from 3000 BC saying that we are the first developers of the Tigris and Euphrates waters. International law, international law, international law. Yeah, you know what? International law is only applied on the women. So we can let them discuss this. I mean, what's Iraq going to do? Go to war with NATO? I don't think so. And so, or do we provide them with a face-saving method to reach an agreement? All right. So Turkey wants to sell water for oil. No Iraqi parliament worthy of the name will ever ratify a treaty exchanging water for oil. But how about we change the discussion to, well, I have a couple of ideas. Before we talk about Mosul Dam, let me talk to you about the bigger idea. Turkey is generating something like 27,000 megawatt of electricity from the gas project. I am told by Turkish technocrats that fully 40% of this electricity is lost. 10% is lost to transportation because they need electricity in Istanbul, some 1,200 kilometers away. And the rest is lost to people who are not paying for the electricity. If we take this high energy electricity and transport it to Iraq, the distance is only this much compared to transporting to Istanbul. Iraq definitely needs electricity. Those of us, you don't know. You have no idea what living without electricity is. We have every Iraqi household has a connection to national grid that works. Maybe you lived in Iraq, you know what I'm talking about, okay? Maybe on a good day we have 3 hours of national grid, and even when it comes, it's like Christmas tree, off on, off on. Every Iraqi household has a diesel generator, and more recently we have something called local generators, and 1 megawatt, district-size generator to which 100 homes are connected. And our life is go outside, change over from national grid to the local generator. It's a mess. Every Iraqi household spends more than $300 a month for electricity. What is your electricity bill here? You tell me, what is your electricity bill?
$30.
Thank you.
78.
All right. It's less than $100, and you make 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times a year than an Iraqi household. Think about it. Think about the proportion of the GDP that is engaged in trying to provide electricity, because life in southern Iraq is not possible without electricity, because we have lost the traditional way of life. And that's another thing that I can talk to you about for hours. We have lost the skills needed to live in our environment. Because of electricity, we have used it to compensate for the changes in architecture, but that's another story. Okay, let's concentrate on this. If Turkey sells the electricity to Iraq, it has a 40% built-in profit. Iraq can pay for that electricity with oil and gas, transported all the way to Istanbul, where it's needed. Now, there's a cost associated with building the pipelines, but also keep in mind that it's only 400 kilometers to the Ukraine from Istanbul. And if we extend those pipelines to the Ukraine, we can compete with Russia for the Eastern European and the Western European market on gas. There's an intrinsic value to that. Russia is going to be against the extension, but let's cross each bridge as we get to it. First, we want to talk about exchanging electricity for oil, not water for oil. Electricity for oil. For Turkey to generate electricity, they have to release water. We get water as a byproduct of this deal. We did not have to solve the question of whose water this is. We, however, created the first step of creating the environment needed to create peace or reduce tension on water issues between Turkey and Iraq. Another idea. How many of you have heard of the Mosul Dam? Quite a lot. For those who have not heard of the Mosul Dam, the Army Corps of Engineers has designated Mosul Dam as the most dangerous dam in the world. It holds 11 billion cubic meters of water. It is a weapon of mass destruction that can be used once, but truly, if it's used, in fact, Daesh did try to use it. When they took over Mosul Dam in 2014, August, they controlled it for 10 days. And they used that 10 days to insert 3,600 kilograms of TNT inside the tunnels. Had they been able to weaponize it, it would have been the Samson option. You attack us, we're going to die by destroying the dam, but you're going to die too. Think of this, a tsunami wave released from Mosul Dam, 60 feet high. It will reach Mosul within 3 hours, putting Mosul under 20 meters of water. 20 meters at 60 feet. Think of what's going to happen. And every town and village and hamlet, from Mosul all the way to possibly Basra, will be flooded. In fact, the United States Embassy just issued a warning maybe 3 months ago, advising its expatriates to stay at least 6 kilometers away from Mosul Dam. The Tigris River. Don't think about the 500,000 people that are going to die as a result of this flood, this tsunami. Think of providing food and water to 10 million displaced people living on the edges of the Tigris. Let's not talk about electricity, let's not talk about clinics, let's not talk about hospitals, let's not talk about shelter. Just food and water. I can't calculate it. In fact, when I talked to somebody at the Ministry of Water Resources quite recently, and I cannot release his name, he says, Azzam, it's so big, I don't want to think about it. Anyway, so it's a huge problem. It's sitting there. It's leaking. Why is it leaking water? It's because it was built on top of a layer of gypsum 200 meters deep. As soon as they started filling the reservoir with water, the water goes inside the soil, it dissolves the gypsum, right? And gypsum is basically the cement that holds this geologic formation together, creating voids, and the water basically goes under the foundation of the dam, creating a weak dam. When the dam starts settling, it cracks, and guess what happens when the dam cracks? You have 11 billion cubic meters going in. Now, the Iraqi engineers were not aware of this problem. They knew this was a problem. It's difficult to, I don't want to go too technical, but they've been grouting, that is injecting cement, from the day it was filled, right? And something like 50,000 tons of material have been used to be injected since 1986. But unfortunately, it's not working. In January, we recorded 5 millimeters. The Army Corps of Engineers was so concerned about this, they installed remote sensing equipment. We recorded 5 millimeters of movement. Now, 5 millimeters is less than a quarter inch. But we're talking about a dam 3 kilometers long, right? 5 millimeters is a lot of movement. It's dangerous. Now, the Iraqi government says, it's not a problem, it's okay. The Army of Engineers says, it's going to, where is the truth? It's somewhere in between. I don't know. But it's a dam that cannot stay in place. We have to find a solution. Now, what the Iraqi government just recently gave $300 million from loan from the World Bank, money that they don't have. Right? So they took a loan, they gave it to a company called Trevi from Italy to introduce new grouting technologies. As if grouting, what's his definition of insanity that Einstein said? Trying the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. This is insanity. We're spending $300 million to introduce new grouting technology as if filling the holes is going to solve the problem. Filling the holes is not going to solve the problems. Even if you fill the holes underneath the dam, it's going to go somewhere else. Water is water. It's going to find the route of anyway. Okay. So calm down. There's another solution that's on the books, basically to build a cut-off slurry wall on the blind underneath the dam, 200 meters deep. That's 600 feet dam underneath the dam. Built on the technology to do this does not exist. The two companies that are suggesting it say it's going to cost $3 billion. Well, the Boston Big Hole was supposed to cost $1 billion. Don't trust engineers with their estimates. Right? So once you start, once you get good money in, you have to spend good money after bad money to start the situation. Anyway, $3 billion that Iraq does not have. Iraq is suffering from huge catastrophic issues with its budget because of the drop of the oil prices. So fortunately, we don't have the $3 billion. Otherwise, they would have started with doing this crazy fix. I say, the hell with it. Decommission the dam. There's plenty of dams in upstream in Turkey. Can we rent? Can we lease a dam? Okay, Turks that do not want to lease us the dam. There's enough storage capacity. I can calculate that evaporation in Mosul is 2 meters. Evaporation in Mosul, think of the Mosul the Mosul Dam lake is very shallow. Therefore, the lake is huge to hold 11 billion. Well, the dams in Turkey are in mountain regions, so the lakes are deep, and therefore the lake's surface area is much smaller. Moreover, elevation is 11 It's 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 meters. It's quite high. The evaporation rates in Turkey are on the order of about 1 meter. Evaporation rates in Mosul is 2 meters. If just an evaporation will save. We'll get into a leasing agreement, say for Mosul Dam. Mosul Dam is about to be finished. It's a large dam. It's intended for hydroelectric power. The dam did not need to be built as high as they're building it right now. Hurriya newspaper in 2014, September, admitted that in fact the reason why Turkey is building the dam this high is to deprive the PKK of an area to operate from. In the process, they will submerge a World Heritage Site called Hassan Cave. It's a beautiful area. Mankind and Neanderthals have been using the area for over 20,000 years. Now, if Iraq gets into a lease agreement with Turkey to operate Mosul Dam, we can get UNESCO to help us with the lease fee by promising not to fill the dam to above elevation, to such an elevation where we can save Hassan Cave. We don't need to fill the entire reservoir. But again, the idea here is to create economic ties that will promote the management of the Tigris and Euphrates together between Iraq and Turkey. This solution will save you just 1 billion cubic meters of water on evaporation. How much is 1 billion cubic meters worth? I don't know. At 1 cent, it's 100 million. Can Iraq and Turkey get into an agreement? I can tell you that I have talked unofficially with Iraqi officials. They love the idea. I have talked with Turkish officials, somebody very close to Erdogan, and he says, if you can bring Iraqi officials to the table with these ideas, we can reach a deal. And ladies and gentlemen, if we start talking about the cost, the game is won. Because no longer are we talking about whose water this is. We're talking about a bazaar. Hey, you want 100 million? I can't have 100 million. I can only give you $80 million. I said, it's 100 million, take it or leave it. All right, stay there. I'll go to the United States. How much is peace between Turkey and Iraq worth for you? How much does it cost you to put another squadron of F-16s in England? Can you subsidize this deal? I can go to UNESCO again. How much is Hassan Cave worth to you? Can you subsidize the deal? The point is, once we get to the negotiation table, the game is won. Because it's not posturing anymore. Now, unfortunately, of course, there are people who are against this idea. Tehran has no interest in bringing Baghdad and Ankara together. So we need to bring in Iran in the process somehow. But I can tell you that officials have accepted the idea. The Mosul Dam idea, by the way, is just published yesterday on the Wilson Center papers. And as long as I'm unofficial, people can claim what you call deniable, plausible deniability. This is just a crazy guy talking about it. But it's entering the lexicon. We talked about electricity. Now, I told you before, it's not the quantity of water that's the problem, it's the quality of water. Right? What's happening is that the areas that are being irrigated, flood irrigation in Turkey and in Syria and in northern Iraq, are traditionally areas that have been fed with rain irrigation. Right? Rain-fed irrigation is cool, does not create drainage. What's happening right now is because of the fact that the water is cheap, they're using flood irrigation. And the drainage water from the flood irrigation comes back to the Tigris and Euphrates. If we modernize irrigation, if we go use drip irrigation, not in Iraq, if we use drip irrigation in Turkey and in Syria and in northern Iraq, we will improve the water quality. And everybody can use that water. But it requires common management. It requires Iraq to subsidize the introduction of drip irrigation in Syria and in Turkey. And we should do it not because we love them. We should do it because we love ourselves. Helping them reduce their consumption of water and more importantly, reduce the drainage that comes back into the Tigris and Euphrates will help us before it helps them. Now, what's in it for the Turkish farmer or the Syrian farmer or the northern Iraqi farmer? Well, unfortunately, the northern Iraqi farmer is still using this water that is being pumped to produce wheat. Now, what's wrong with that? I'll tell you what's wrong with that. It's because the Iraqi government buys this ton of wheat from the Iraqi farmer at 700,000 Iraqi dirham. That's about $600 a ton. That same ton delivered from Canada to Basra costs $300. What sense does it make? Oh, food security. That's how the Iraqi. Now I challenge anybody to go find me flour or wheat, Iraqi wheat in the Iraqi market. You can't find it. The Iraqi government buys it, and in order to hide this stupid cost, they make it into flour and they distribute it as part of the food ration. But it's a big budget item that is hidden. You know how the accountants hide money, right? And so Iraqi government should actually change its policy, and this is probably the next step. The Iraqi farmer should not compete with the Canadian farmer, or the American farmer, or the Australian farmer, or the Russian farmer. We should not be in the business of producing wheat, because we don't have large farms. We don't. In order to produce wheat, a family of 5 can farm 1,000 acres in the United States. This 1,000 acres in Iraq would have to be divided. It would be 20 families. It just doesn't work. So, but where Iraqi farmers and Turkish farmers can compete well is to convert agriculture to vegetables, stuff that's perishable. Then they can actually compete well. The point is, this requires long-term introduction of improvements, stepwise improvements. It's going to require a lot of coordination between Turkey and Iraq and Syria. But nevertheless, it's okay. These ideas all, if we can kind of create common management, if we can create common interests, economic interests between Turkey and Iraq, and not just about water alone, water, trade, energy. We can convert, we can use this water issue as the next step towards creating a unified area, at least management-wise. And of course, a lot of people are going to say, really? You're going to solve the Middle East problems that way? And say, yeah, okay. It's a hard thing. But I always say, if you're going to dream big, it's free. But more importantly, I also say that this is actually a dream based on reality. Why I say that? Because I read history. And those of you're specialists in Middle East history, but if you study the history of European Union, you will find out that the European Union started as the Coal and Steel Committee between Germany and France in May 1950. 5 years after World War II, Germany and France came to an agreement to coordinate the production of coal and steel together. 7 years later, 1957, this became the Coal and Steel Union. England joined, Italy joined, and I don't recall who else, 2 more countries joined. It became the Coal and Steel Union. 5 years later, they created something called the Common Agricultural Market. 1962. 20 years later, they created the European Union. Today, the European Union is 28 countries, 28 languages, I believe, 1 religion. In our region, we have 4 countries, main countries: Arabic, Turkish, Iranian, and I don't know how many Kurdish dialects. The point is, we can create the Silk Route. We can call the Fertile Crescent market. We can call it whatever we want. But here, I am telling you that water can be the bridge to that point in the future. Thank you.
We have time to take questions. And, is that all right?
Yeah. I'm here to spread the word. I'll still here for 3 hours. There's a question over there.
And there's a
You're the moderator.
Thank you very much for your brilliant analysis and thorough. Tell me what happened to the programs that started in 1950 and 60, washing the salinity from agricultural areas, usually southern Chilean, going down to Negev and that area.
A lot was implemented. Yusfia, Latifia, Iskandaria, and Najaf. A lot was implemented. However, the salinity problem started in a time, well, it stopped in the 1980s because all the spending was going towards military. 1990s, there was nothing. There was no oil. No. And now it's not possible. Even if they have the money, the quality of water coming in at a qa'im in the Euphrates is mentioned in the Quran as ma' al-adad. That's what Euphrates means, Quran, ma' al-Quran. It's coming in at a qa'im in the summer at 900 spots per million. That may not mean anything to you. The World Health Organization says any water above 1,000 parts per million should not be drunk because it will create kidney stone problems. The Iraqi standard is 1,500 because apparently the Iraqi kidney is a lot stronger than the they put it 1,500 because they can't, otherwise they cannot provide water to all the cities starting from Paran all the way to Nasiriyah and Mosul. I measured the salinity with my own hands in Nasiriyah, 2,300 spots per million. That's why I say agriculture is going to die in the land where it was born, because this water is being used for irrigation. And as the water evaporates, it's going to leave the salt behind, and there is no flood that comes in to wash it away.
yes, please.
Sorry. I just got a microphone. Is there a disadvantage for the Turkish farmers with drip versus flood? I'm just wondering what Nick.
Okay, so drip costs an initial investment to provide the drip heads and maybe some maintenance along the route. But the advantage of drip irrigation is that it produces 30% more produce. It reduces the amount of salinity is because it's concentrated and it's not gonna dry, right? There's always, but more importantly, it also reduces your the amount of fertilizer that you need to put because it's concentrated. And so there are advantages, and of course, if you cover the area, you can also produce off-cycle, off-season. You can produce tomato all year long. It has a lot of advantages, but there is a cost. There's an initial investment cost. Where's that going to come from? And it's very expensive. It's not cheap.
Still a win-win.
Yeah. Yes, Debbie.
You mentioned one of the problems of all these dams is the lack of flooding and therefore not washing away the salt. Is not a second issue that much of that beautiful silt that would come down each year is blocked between each of the dams?
Yeah. Mosul Dam, its life is expected to be about 120 years because the reservoir is going to be filled. Every dam is going to be filled. Eventually, it becomes flatland. Because we're talking about geological timescale, not human timescale.
Yeah.
Now, newer dams are being built with what they call a clean-out tunnel. It doesn't work, thank God. What happens is that you have large rocks that come in and get locked in, and then sometimes you can't even close the clean-out. But our experience with large, huge dams is the very first huge dam was Hoover Dam, 1936. So
it's the second loss for the marshes.
It is. Okay.
But it's not
Yeah, and it's all of southern Iraq, right? All of southern Iraq is sedimentary plain, and sedimentary plain is we're going to continue to settle because that's the nature of sedimentary plain. Now we also, I don't want to complicate it too much, but you also have climate change happening, right? We're all talking about increased sea level. Tampa Bay already is suffering from this. Well, guess what? Iraq is Basra, as I told you, is plus 2 meters. That means at high tide is going to start getting flooded. Eventually, the salt wedge, and that's another thing that's happening. In southern Iraq, you have the salt wedge, or because of the reduced flow of the Tigris and Euphrates. I love nature. Nature is so connected. It's like it's fine-tuned. And then we engineers think that we're smarter than God, and we come in and we build these dams and we change everything, but in an imperceptible way. Eventually, we're feeling right now in Basra. The salt, Basra's water has always, since 1975, I remember it being hot and salty. You can taste salt. But now it has become almost impossible to use Basra water because, in fact, because of the reduced flow of the Tigris and Euphrates, that wave was keeping the Gulf in its place, right? And so, but you reduce the amount of push, the Gulf comes in, and then more importantly, the flow used to be turbulent, right? So there was mixing. Now it's coming slow, so it's becoming laminar a little bit. So you have the salt wedge penetrating all the way up to Basra itself. And so, what's that doing to the agriculture in south of Iraq? I mean, when you have groundwater that's seawater, eventually the capillary action is going to bring in the seawater to the surface. I don't think we're smart enough to figure it out.
Yes, please.
I wonder if you have also looked at environmental disasters in Lake Urumia in Iran, in northwest Iran. They built a lot of dams, and because
this is in Kurdistan,
in Azerbaijan.
In Azerbaijan, okay.
Just destroyed the lake to the extent that even UN warned them. So something for you to look at it, because
I will look
the
at it.
disaster was the dams. The Iranian government built a lot of dams, and the water was not going into the lake. It became completely salt. The environmental disasters are seen in Mashhad, in east part of Iran, to the extent that people have to walk with car. So,
Because of the dust storms and
yes, salt gone everywhere, destroyed birds and everything. I mean, disaster.
The problem is we are increasing in numbers, we humans, and you gotta feed them. You gotta provide electricity. So I mean, I am a chartered member of Dam the Dams movement, but how else are you going to feed these people? And then you have the added layer of complexity of climate change. We don't even know what climate change is going to do. I mean, we had a 5-year drought. Some people are saying climate change. Some people are saying, no, this is just nature. I tell you, I'm not smart enough to figure it out. I can tell you, however, is that we have to adapt. We have to work with nature. I mean, for 100 years, we thought that we're smarter than nature. Engineers, I'm not talking about, we'll put it down. I mean, even in the United States, what are the consequences of Hoover Dam? Anybody has looked at it? Very few environmentalists have looked at it. But reality, what has happened in the Hoover Dam is that the Colorado River has become choked with debris that used to be cleaned every year. Right? From the snowmelt, you have the water that comes in the Colorado River. It pushes all that water into the Gulf of California. And for now 60, 70 years, there has not been any cleanup. So the Colorado River itself slowly is getting choked. So for the last 10 years, they've been running an experiment, doing what they do, environmental releases. They try to do a mechanical flood, releasing a lot of water from Hoover Dam in the spring to create this flooding action. Right, to try to maybe compensate a little bit. I'll tell you that Mexico has won 2 cases against the United States for the quality of water in the northern Gulf of California. But okay, so go win cases. Who's gonna mess with the United States? The Sadris maybe about that, but not yet. So yeah, I mean, in becoming, I don't envy my children or their children. They're coming to an era of, what was the Chinese curse? May you live in interesting times?
Shall we thank our speaker?
Just wanted to mention that in this very town, there was an experience somewhat similar to the Mosul Dam on a much smaller scale. Like when they, I don't know if the locals have told you already, like about 90 years ago, when they wanted to be on the water supply for the city, they built a dam called Leonard Springs Dam.
Oh, I remember reading about it.
Yes.
It breached.
Yes, now it's breached, and what happened, the beavers came, and they built a small dam in there, because there is a bit of water there, the beavers back. But what the city did, it built in a different dam, was Griffey Dam, at an area where there is no limestone under the dam. So it's not like Griffey Dam or Monroe Dam. But what's left of Leonard Springs Dam is still there, so if you want to visit it, I suppose you still can.
I would love to. I'm a water guy. Look, where this is leading to. I mean, eventually, I think we're going to be wise enough to understand that large dams is not the solution. But we still need smaller dams.
What is a small dam at our own place?
Right? I think eventually we're going to end up with smaller dams that make it possible for local areas to survive agriculturally. But the era of huge dams, I mean, unfortunately, okay, so the World Bank in 1992 stopped sponsoring large dams. But they just changed their policy just last year. They're back again sponsoring large dams because of the fact that we have climate change, we have increasing population. I mean, the food that you've just eaten is virtual water. The meat you're eating is virtual water. I mean, we're talking about food.
Any more questions? Well,